The hum of the engines aboard the Odyssey felt like a distant drone to Evelyn Ward as she stood in front of the communications console, her fingers clenched tightly around the edge of the desk. The message from Earth Command blinked on the screen in front of her. Immediate withdrawal. Prepare for potential engagement with Rygellan forces. She read it again, her heart sinking. The peaceful exchanges had come to an abrupt halt. Tensions between humanity and the Rygellans had escalated far quicker than she had anticipated. Diplomatic talks had failed, and now both sides were preparing for war. Evelyn felt the weight of her duty pressing down on her like never before. War could break out any moment, and the consequences of her secret relationship with Zha'ri were about to become painfully clear. If her superiors found out she had been meeting with him in defiance of orders, it wouldn't just be her career on the line. It could doom the fragile peace entirely. Commander, Lieutenant Ramirez's voice came through the intercom, snapping her back to reality. The Rygellan fleet is positioning itself on the far side of Valera. They're not making any moves yet, but I wouldn't count on that lasting. Evelyn clenched her jaw. The situation was unraveling faster than she could keep up with. Maintain course for now. Keep the shields ready, but don't fire unless fired upon. As she turned away from the console, her mind raced. She needed to talk to Zha'ri. He had been honest with her about the distrust within his ranks, but even he hadn't anticipated how quickly their fragile connection would deteriorate. This wasn't just about two species with different values anymore, it was about survival. Her private comm link buzzed in her quarters, interrupting her thoughts. Evelyn rushed to answer it, her pulse quickening as Zha'ri's familiar face appeared on the screen. His silver skin was dimly lit in the low light of his ship, his dark eyes filled with worry. "Evelyn," he said quietly, his voice laced with urgency. "My people know about us." Her stomach dropped.
How?
"They've been monitoring our communications. They know we've been meeting in secret," he said, his gaze hardening. "The Council believes your emotional influence on me is a threat. They've ordered me to sever all ties with you immediately. If I don't, I'll be exiled." Evelyn felt her chest tighten. Exile. For a Rygellan, it was a fate worse than death, complete disconnection from their ordered, collective society. Zha'ri had already risked everything by defying his people to meet with her. She had known this was a possibility, but hearing it now, the reality of the situation crashed down around her. "Zha'ri, There's more," he interrupted, his tone sharp. "Your people are preparing for war. If Earth Command learns of our relationship, it could be seen as an act of betrayal. You'll be removed from command, or worse." Evelyn swallowed hard, the weight of the consequences becoming clearer with each word. Her heart ached with the impossible choice in front of her. "What are we supposed to do?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Zha'ri's gaze softened. "I don't know, but I won't let them use us as pawns in their conflict. There has to be another way." Before she could respond, the ship's alarm blared through the comm system. Ramirez's voice echoed over the intercom. "Commander Ward, we've got incoming Rygellan ships. They're positioning for an attack." Evelyn's blood ran cold. It was happening. The fragile peace was shattering right before her eyes. "Zha'ri, I have to go," she said, her heart racing. "Wait," Zha'ri said quickly, his eyes locking onto hers. "I'll come to you. There's still time to stop this." Zha'ri, no. But he was already gone, the comm link cutting out before she could protest. Panic gripped her. If Zha'ri was caught boarding her ship, both their lives would be forfeit. She couldn't let that happen. Evelyn raced to the bridge, her mind reeling. The Odyssey shook as the Rygellan ships made their move, positioning in an aggressive stance. The tactical screen lit up with warning signals, showing the Rygellan vessels closing in on their position. "Commander, we've got a transmission from the Rygellans," Ramirez reported, his voice tense. "They're demanding we stand down, or they'll open fire." Evelyn's mind raced.
She needed to buy time.
"Open a channel," she ordered. As the screen blinked to life, she straightened her posture, her voice steady and commanding. "This is Commander Ward of the Odyssey. We do not wish for conflict. Stand down, and we can resolve this peacefully." The Rygellan captain's voice was cold. "Peace is no longer an option. Your emotional manipulations have endangered one of our own." We demand Zha'ri's immediate return to Rygellan custody. Evelyn's heart sank. They knew. They were using Zha'ri as leverage, but she wouldn't betray him. Zha'ri acted of his own free will, she said, her voice tight. This isn't a manipulation. It's an act of understanding. The captain's response was swift and final. You have 1 minute to comply, Commander, or we will consider this an act of war. The screen went black, and Evelyn stood frozen, her mind spinning. In 1 minute, her decision would either ignite a war or change the course of history. But no matter what, she knew one thing for certain. She couldn't abandon Zha'ri. Evelyn Ward stood at the center of the Odyssey's bridge, her pulse pounding in her ears as the Rygellan fleet loomed closer. The ship's tactical display blinked red, warning of an imminent attack. She had less than a minute to decide the fate of 2 civilizations and the man she had come to care for. Commander, Lieutenant Ramirez said urgently, the Rygellans are arming their weapons. What are your orders? Evelyn's mind raced. She couldn't allow this to turn into a full-scale war. The consequences would be catastrophic, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. And yet, she couldn't simply turn Zha'ri over to his people. They would see him as a traitor, and she knew what that meant for him. Exile, isolation, or worse. Her heart clenched as she thought of him. Zha'ri had risked everything to come to her. Now, she had to protect him. Hold our position, she said, her voice steady. Do not fire unless fired upon. Ramirez gave her a sharp nod, though the tension in the room was palpable. The crew was on edge, bracing for what felt like an inevitable conflict. Evelyn's gaze flicked to the comms officer. Any sign of Zha'ri's shuttle? Not yet, Commander, came the reply. But it's close. He'll be here any moment. Evelyn exhaled slowly. There was still time, just barely. Suddenly, the screen flashed to life with a message from the Rygellan flagship. The cold, emotionless voice of the Rygellan captain returned. Your time is up, Commander Ward.
You have refused to comply.
We will now take action to retrieve Zha'ri. Evelyn's pulse quickened, but she forced herself to remain calm. Wait, she said sharply. Zha'ri is coming to me of his own accord. He seeks peace, just as I do. There's no need for violence. The captain's voice was as unyielding as stone. Your emotional attachment has clouded your judgment. Zha'ri is a danger to our society, and we will not allow your influence to spread. Evelyn's throat tightened. They weren't listening. They saw Zha'ri's connection to her as a contamination, something to be eradicated. She had to make them understand. Zha'ri's bond with me isn't a threat, she said, her voice strong and unwavering. It's a bridge between our people. We're not so different, you and I, Earth and Rygellans. We both want what's best for our societies. But isolating yourselves and suppressing your emotions has cost you something important.
Zha'ri knows that.
He's shown me that we can find a better way. The screen remained dark, the silence that followed oppressive. Evelyn's heart pounded as she waited, her mind racing. What else could she say? What more could she offer to prevent the bloodshed? Then a voice, calm, familiar, cut through the tension. This is Zha'ri of the Rygellan Council. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat as his image appeared on the screen. He had made it. Zha'ri stood tall, his expression calm yet resolute, his dark eyes locking onto hers for the briefest moment before turning to address his people. I speak now not as your council member, but as one who has seen what lies beyond our rigid rules and traditions, he said. Commander Ward is right. Our society has become so focused on control, on order, that we have forgotten what it means to truly live, to feel. A murmur rippled through the bridge as Zha'ri's words hung in the air, the weight of his defiance clear. He was risking everything by speaking out against his own people. I have come to understand that emotions, love, fear, hope, are not weaknesses. They are what make life worth living. And I believe there is a way for our people and Earth to coexist peacefully, not as enemies, but as partners. But if we continue down this path of violence, we will lose that chance forever. For a moment, the comm channel remained silent. The Rygellan captain's face was unreadable, but Evelyn could see the conflict brewing behind his cold exterior. Zha'ri took a step closer to the screen, his voice unwavering. I will return to Rygellan custody if that is what you command. But know this, if you continue to suppress your emotions, if you refuse to let your people feel, you will never understand what it means to truly live. You will remain trapped in a cage of your own making. Evelyn's heart ached as she listened to him, the courage in his words stirring something deep within her. He was willing to sacrifice everything, his freedom, his life, for the chance at a better future for both their worlds. Finally, the Rygellan captain spoke, his voice quiet but firm. Zha'ri, you have defied the council. You know the punishment for such actions. I do, Zha'ri replied, his gaze steady. But I also know that change is coming. Whether you accept it or not, the bond between Earth and Rygellans has already been formed. It cannot be undone. The captain's eyes narrowed, but he did not immediately respond. Instead, he turned to Evelyn, his expression unreadable. Commander Ward, you have made your choice clear. For now, we will withdraw. But know this, if your emotional entanglement with Zha'ri leads to further instability, there will be no more negotiations. The screen went dark, and the tension on the bridge eased as the Rygellan fleet slowly began to retreat. A collective sigh of relief filled the room, but Evelyn's heart was still racing. The threat had not disappeared, it had merely been postponed. Zha'ri's voice came through her private calm once more. Evelyn, it's not over. They'll come for me eventually. She closed her eyes, the weight of everything they had faced crashing down on her. I know, she whispered, but we've bought ourselves time. And as long as we're together, we'll figure out the rest. Zha'ri's reply was soft but resolute.
Together.
As the Odyssey drifted through the stars, Evelyn knew their journey was far from over. They had to fight the odds, but the future was uncertain. Yet in that moment, she found comfort in the one thing that remained constant, the bond she and Zha'ri had forged. It was stronger than fear, stronger than war, stronger than the forces that sought to tear them apart.